At first glance, you might wonder why an insurance agency is talking about agriculture. But when you think about it, farming is one of the riskiest business out there. Unpredictable weather, supply chain disruptions, and market fluctuations can all impact a farmer's livelihood. At IPG, we don't just sell insurance. We help people and businesses manage uncertainty. And in a world where food security and sustainability are growing concerns, understanding and mitigation risk in agriculture is more important than ever. Hi, CS. Welcome. Hi. You know me. I know you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
absolutely.
being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
This part of the conversation is going to be more up close and personal.
Okay.
Once again, I'm very grateful to have you in this space to talk with IPG.
Thank you.
And I know that you are been in this industry for almost 40 years. And when you look back and you see...
4 years?
40 years.
40 years.
Oh,
okay. Okay.
Sorry. Now I know. I did my research. I know that you started at 15, around 15.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When I was a baby.
Exactly. So yes. So now 40 years later, what do you think is like the moment that you realize that this is my life's work?
Well, there was such a moment in my career, and that's about 10 years ago, when you can say, struck gold. Right, I pivoted my business from trading in agricultural inputs such as fertilizers, pesticides, to mergers and acquisitions about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I struck gold because I put together the biggest deal in my life between a company in France and a company in Brazil. So not only that I did a big deal of about $100 million, but I also earned a success fee of 7 digits.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So that was really, like I said, I struck gold, right? But that is not the only thing that gave me so much gratification. The other thing, other than the money, other than the 7-digit success fee, is because I'm once sitting in Singapore and I can get a European company with multi-billion euro turnover to acquire a company in Brazil, right? Just that.
Yeah.
A lot
Amazing.
of people ask me, how
Amazing.
did you do that, CS? Right? How did you get such a big European company to acquire a company in Brazil that far away sitting here? So that in itself is it's a very interesting story. So it has to do with networking. It has to do with LinkedIn, social media, writing articles, being on the stage, right? Speaking publicly, in seminars, right? Getting yourself known. I always say that if you do something good, you need to put it on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Don't wink in the dark, right? No point winking in the dark.
Let me take notes of that. Yes.
Don't be shy. When you have something good, it's no different to your industry. Right?
That's true. Yeah, it's true.
You're going to make yourself known. You're going to make your products known.
Yeah.
So why not go to LinkedIn and other social media that is out there?
Yeah.
Right? Make full use of it. Right? So in my case, how did the Brazilian find me? It's because I write articles that are insightful, published in the US, read globally. Right? And the founder of that company in Brazil follows me. Every time he sees an article of mine being published, he will read it, right? Then one day he told his general manager, when you go over to Asia, you're going to meet this guy, C.S. Liu. I think he has a lot of connections and he can bring us an investor, because they needed an investor, right? Because in Brazil, the credit terms are very long. Can be 270 days, 300 days, before money gets back to the dealer and then back into the supply chain to the suppliers, right? So it can be that long, but nobody can finance something for 300 days, right? So
Okay.
there's a gap.
Okay.
The banks also have a limited appetite, for risk. They cannot finance 100%. So there's a gap. So they needed an investor to come in. And I found this French cooperative that is cashed up.
Yeah.
And they wanted to expand globally.
Yeah.
So you see, it's a perfect match.
You were in the perfect time with the perfect opportunity.
Absolutely.
And the perfect knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Networking.
And networking, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Everybody were knowing what you were doing. Very good. I mean, always, I was telling my daughter that I was about to interview.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, agri-science, what's that? And I would say, don't you worry. I will ask CS to explain to you. She's 11 years old.
Okay.
So can you do an explanation of what is it, agri-science, and what is it that you do for the bigger audience, like the younger audience, to understand?
Okay, to understand my business.
Yes.
Agri-business, agri-science.
Agri-science.
Right. Our company name is Agri-Science, right? Pacific Agri-Science.
Yes.
So what is agri-science? This is science related to agriculture. Okay. Earlier, we talked a lot about technologies,
Yes.
right, that are going into agriculture, that there are also a lot of agri-science and products that are not yet deployed into agriculture today because of lack of return on investment, right?
Okay.
That's why they're not being used by farmers. They're not deployed to contribute to sustainable agriculture, regenerative agriculture, right? So if I were to explain to your daughter what is agri-science, what is agribusiness, like I said, it is all related to food production, which we all need, right? And we need more of it going forward.
Essential.
Yeah.
I'm worried. I'm
Yeah.
worried.
Mhm.
I'm worried that what's going to happen
Yeah.
to our food resources.
Right. Absolutely. It's something that needs to be addressed because we have 2 more billion people coming to dinner, right?
Yes.
In the next 15 years or so,
Yeah.
right? So, or is it 15 or 25 years? No, 25 years. So we have a bit of time, right? But like I said, there's so much technology and products there that are not yet deployed, and there's also a lot more in the pipeline, right? Today we have AI, right? We have artificial intelligence that is also creeping into the agri-science arena, right? That again, not yet fully deployed, right? You have autonomous tractors, you have harvesters that can do the job without the farmer even being in the tractor, right? There's a lot of that coming in the pipeline.
Yeah, I believe agriculture is tough.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have you ever felt like you wanted to quit, like give up?
No. It's because.
And what keeps you going? Of course, you're here. Of course, definitely is no. But you had that thought, and maybe you're like, what keeps you going?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? It's tough, particularly for a farmer, right? And I'm not a farmer. In a way, I'm a farmer. I'm an urban farmer. I have a garden in Singapore.
One.
Yeah, so I do plant quite a few things out there, right? So anyway, it is tough in terms of making money, right? We all say we want food, we want more food, we want quality food, we want food that is devoid of any chemical contaminants and all that. Everybody wants that, right? But the poor farmer is not making a good return on investment. Yeah. That is the toughest part. And because we are supplying inputs, right? Fertilizers, pesticides, seeds, these are the 3 critical inputs every farmer needs, right? So if farmer is not making money, it makes the job of selling them those inputs very tough. Right?
Very, very good. Now that you mentioned the farmers, you not only works with farmers, you works with scientists, you work with investors, you work with businesses.
Right.
So how do you make them work all together?
Yeah.
at the same
So,
time.
yeah.
They have
So,
so different,
absolutely. Yeah.
motivations and
Right.
priorities.
Motivations, objectives, priorities are all different. As I say,
Yes,
stakeholders' objectives are not aligned.
exactly.
That is a major challenge, right? So you have on one hand the primary production side, the farmers, right? They are the ones growing the food. Then you have the supply chain to get the food to the supermarket and from the supermarket to the dinner table, right? So everybody along that line, their objectives are so different. Right, consumers want all the things that I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
right, and the food, but they also don't want to pay a lot. So,
Fair enough.
so
Yes.
how can that all be aligned, right? So that this is a major challenge, right? So we have to be realistic, right? Out there, you have always consumers who can pay and consumers who cannot pay. But unfortunately, food is such a political item that every government wants to ensure that the poorest citizens can afford to eat. Now that's where the problem lies, right? So we cannot make food so cheap that farmers then don't make any money.
I see.
Right? But then, like I said, it's such a political item, right? No government wants to have food price inflation because there will be uprising, right? There will be riots. Consumers will be up in arms. Why are we paying 2 times, 3 times, 4 times more than before? So that's not sustainable, right?
Let's go back to Southeast Asia. I mean, this is a global situation, but you've been traveling and working with many countries. But in Southeast Asia, did you see something that is being done here differently than the rest of the world related to agriculture?
Not really. That is different. I think all farmers all over the world, they face the same fundamental issues, right? Earlier we talked about risk, right?
Yes.
Going forward, definitely more risk,
Yeah.
right? Because of climate change, right? So then overlaying all these, traditional risk related to climate situations, you now have political risk. You have geopolitical rivalries. One day, this farmer is happily selling his products to, say, China, from US particularly. Next day, you have President Trump coming in to, enhance the tariffs on China. There's countermeasures from China. We don't want to buy American soybeans, corn, whatnot. So then this poor farmer sitting in the Midwest in the US is so helpless. Right? All of a sudden, he couldn't sell. So aside from a hurricane and drought and all that, you have all these political issues.
That's another conversation. It's like it will take you like maybe 2 hours long.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions regarding agriculture, I think. I just want to remind you that we are this is going to go live. So
absolutely.
Hold your horses. But I mean, what is something that for yourself, to you, it drives you crazy that people misunderstand about agriculture in general? That's a misconception that drives you mad that people don't understand.
Yeah, I would say more to do with, a very, very fundamental change in how we produce food. I'm an agronomist, agriculturist, right?
Yes.
Agronomy is the study of crops and soils. So I deal with traditional, right? Agriculture. You got to have the soil. You got to have the right climate. Then about 10 years ago, you have what we call alternative protein. You have indoor farming. Instead of growing crops out in the field, you now grow it in a warehouse, right?
Yeah.
Instead of raising cattle and pigs and sheep and all that, now you grow it in a lab, meat, so-called meat, alternative protein. To me, that's so unnatural, right? To have all that. And of course, the narrative for that is, we don't need to kill an animal, right? Now we don't face animal risk because we are now indoors, right? We don't have the climate change and all that to affect us. But the big problem there is cost.
You don't
right?
feel that this is the right solution.
No, that doesn't provide the food that most people need. It is a niche market, right? There's always very rich people. There's a small community out there that buys the narrative, right?
Yes.
That food grown indoors and without killing an animal is all good and all that. But by and large, you cannot feed the 8 and 10 billion people around the world, right? It's a very small niche market, and that's why it's facing a lot of headwinds right now. The alternative protein market segment, right? And also the indoor farms growing vegetables and all that. The cost is too high compared to growing it in a natural environment.
All right. Okay, I'm going to give you a power.
Okay.
Imagine you have a magic wand at this point of time, and you can change one thing overnight regarding agriculture. What will that be?
That's a tough question because we are dealing with agriculture, food production. There's no magic wand that can make a big change out there, but more incremental changes, right? Rather than an overnight change, right? So obviously, as I said, I'm with the farmers. I've been dealing with farmers for 45 years.
Yes.
Not 40 years, right?
Sorry,
around the world.
Disclaimer,
around
45
the world.
years.
45 years around the world. So my heart is very much, thinking about all the sufferings, all the difficulties that they all face, right? So if I have a way to change things, I want them to be not only productive, not only contributing to regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture. I want them to make money. So,
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Amen.
And more importantly, mitigate the risk, right? Because they put everything up front. They need to buy seeds. They need to buy fertilizers, pesticides. So they are investing up front. But the output, the harvest, is uncertain. So that's where insurance really plays a very important part. The huge potential that I mentioned, right?
Yeah,
Out
correct.
of 570 million farmers around the world, 400 million are the small ones.
Definitely.
And you haven't tapped those 400. You only tapped the 150 million, right? The easy one, the
Right.
low-hanging fruit.
We need to start somewhere,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And the prospects are there. The need is there. So it's just how you address it, how you come up with the right policies and reaching out to them, right?
Yeah.
So there are ways and means. If we can reach the small farmers with our agriculture inputs,
Yes.
likewise, you can reach out to the same with your insurance, which they need.
You are so right.
Yeah. Aside
You're
from
so right.
seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, the fourth most important item there, insurance. Without that, they're always going to face this risk that they cannot manage. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes. It's been a very insightful conversation. I enjoy talking to you because
Thank
you're
you,
always
thank
so
you.
open and
Thank you.
very transparent.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. And
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
It's a good engagement, a good conversation, right? I'm glad you invited me here and address some of these very, very important issues.
Definitely.
And very often nobody talks about insurance, right? Insurance is only for the big farms. Right? But like I said, I put things in perspective for you today.
Yeah.
570 million farmers around the world, 400 million, nobody cares about them. Right, including insurance. So
we're
here's-
gonna change that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
here's your prospect. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Telephone brings what's familiar to you.